Hi everyone, we warmly welcome you to the community call on Mastering the Code Challenge with WSO2 Choreo. So in today's call, we are going to teach you how you can get the maximum number of entries, which is 8 entries to win the code challenge. As you all know, WSO2 is running a code challenge where you can win a Tesla Cybertruck or $100,000. All you have to do is build and deploy an app on Choreo. So to be eligible, your app needs to have a front end and a back end, and it needs to be deployed in the Choreo production environment. Then you can maximize your points or maximize your entries and winning chances by exploring Choreo a bit more. So you have the opportunity to get 8 entries in total in order to maximize your chances of winning. So in today's call, what we are going to do is take you through how the process of how you can win all these maximum entries and enter into the code challenge. So I'm going to hand over the call to Asanka, and he will take you through how you can use all the capabilities of Choreo to get the maximum number of entries. Over to you, Asanka.
Thank you, Kavishka. So let me share my screen first. Okay, hope everyone can see my screen. Let me move the... All right. Okay, welcome everyone. So today in this community call, I'm planning to talk to you more about how you can get the maximum amount of entries. So you have the maximum possibility of winning the great prizes. So this is a continuation from the last week's community call. I'm Asanka Bevira. I'm working as an architect in the Choreo engineering team. And I have been working in the WSO2 for over a decade now. So I'll first give a brief introduction on Choreo and why Choreo exists for the people who's joining today for the first time. So we all know that every organization has become a software company, irrespective of their primary operating industry. The reason is the organizations has to continuously adapt to the evolving digital ecosystems to cater and to be competitive in the markets. So when we talk about software development, it's not just about writing code. It's there are many things you have to do, from designing to maintaining the software in production. Like setting up CI/CD pipelines, maintaining different environments, managing configurations, and like monitoring, observing the deployments. So that is where Choreo comes in. So you have a out-of-the-box solution, a platform which you can use rather than building your own platform. Yeah, that's a very brief summary on Choreo. So we'll straight away jump into the competition that we are running. So to brief about, I'll first brief about the qualification, like how you can qualify and what is the minimum things you have to do to qualify for the code challenge. So as Kavishka mentioned, you need to have a web application component, and then another like a backend service component to support the front-end component. And then the other requirement is you need to have both of these components running in production environment. So those are the 3 simple requirements. So if you do these 3 things, like we did in the previous community call, you will get 1 entry to the prize draw. So now in this talk, we are focusing about how you can get 8 entries, right? Like this is to multiply your chances of winning by 8 times. So the screen that I have shared shows what you would see when you have completed all of these tasks. So there are 8 things that you need to do. So the first thing is, as I have mentioned earlier, to get the minimum qualification, you need to have a web app component and a supporting service component deployed in the production environment. And then you can deploy a manual or scheduled job component to get another entry. And then if you have used Ballerina to implement any of the components, you will get another entry. And then we have a concept called Choreo connections, which simplifies managing dependencies between services. I'll show you when I go through the demo. So if you use that in your solution, you will get another entry. And then for the app authentication, if you use the identity management solution that we are providing called Asgardeo, you will get another entry. And then Choreo has a managed databases. So if you use a managed database for your solution, that will give you another entry. And we have a concept called projects in Choreo to group logically related components. And projects, in a way, define the network boundary that the services can communicate. I'll go into more details when I go through the demo. So if you have multiple of those, you will earn another entry. And then finally, you need to have an internal and an external API in your solution. So to briefly talk about that one, internal API is an service or an API that can be only invoked in the same organization. These APIs are not exposed to the public internet. And the external APIs is an API that you can invoke through the public internet. So let's uh, go to the demo so you will understand it more. So I picked a very simple scenario for the demonstration. So this is a medical appointment booking application. This has a front end which users come log in and put their medical appointments. And then there is a scheduled task sending reminders through email to the registered users for the upcoming appointments. So that is at a very high level is what this solution is about. So this is how the front page will look like after you log in. So I'll go to the high level architectural architecture that we are going to implement. So before I explain the architecture further, I'll first go to Choreo and create a database which we need in our solution. And the reason I am doing that is because it takes around 5 minutes to get the database resource up and running. Okay, so I have created a fresh account to do this one, and I'll use that account to log into Choreo. So you can go to console.choreo.dev, and that should prompt for a login. Yeah, since I have already logged in, I get the welcome message. You need to accept it. Yeah, and then you get a banner which asks to register for the code challenge. So I would say yes. And then it asks for product updates. I'll say confirm. Okay. So this is the first page that you would see after doing all that. So I will go to, so my requirement is to create a Choreo managed database. So I'll go to the organization page and click on dependencies. There you see a databases menu item. Here you can go and click on create. And for this one, I'm planning to use an MySQL database. So I'll give this a name. I'll call this appointment DB and press next. I would like to select the region as United States, and then the plan is only available this. So I'll click on that one and click create. Let's wait. Okay, so it says it's being created. So until that get created, I'll go back to the architecture and explain how we are going to do this. So as I have mentioned, I have used two projects to implement this. So projects is again a logical grouping of related components. So here at a high level, I have two main domains that I'm working on. First one is the appointment management domain, which which is handling the appointments, persisting and sending the email reminders like tasks. And then we have the web portal domain, which is basically is responsible for uh, working with the use web app interactions. That this web app is consuming the appointment service to provide the experience, right? That is very high level. That's how it works. So if I focus a little bit on the appointment management project, I have an appointment service, which is of the service component type. And that one is using a database to persist the data. And then it is exposed as a, so I have set the network visibility to organization. So if you remember, this is an internal API, which is accessible only within the organization. How do I do it? The way to do it is you set the network visibility to organization. I'll show you how to do that when I go through the scenarios. So, and then I have another component type, a task component, which is used to send email reminders. This is called email reminder task. So this one is calling the appointment service to get the upcoming appointments and then sending an email periodically. And then if you look at the web portal project, we have a, BFF service. This is a backend for front. I am following the backend for front end pattern to implement this. So this service is consuming the appointment service, which is available within the organization. And that BFF service is exposed as a public API or an external API. So how do we do that? The way to do it is we set the network visibility as public. And then we have the Care Connect web app, which is the web app, the front end, which is responsible for delivering the front end resources and managing it. I hope the architecture at a high level is clear to you. So we'll visit this time to time to clear and to explain it better. So we'll now start building the application in Choreo. Okay, so the first thing that I'm going to do is create two projects that will host the different components. So our database is still getting deployed. I'll open another tab and there I will start creating the two projects. One is web portal, the other one is appointment management. So I'll start with the web portal. Provide the name as web portal, and you can pick either of the options. I have all the code in single repo, so doesn't matter. And then click create. So this will, behind the scenes, will create all the resources that needs to support that project. And then I'll create another project to host our other components. It's called appointment management. And then let's click on create. Okay, now we have both the projects ready. So I'll start with creating the appointment service component. So this will be a service. So we are in the appointment management project. I'll click on service and then give the name appointment service. And I'll pick the repo which hosts my code. Okay, so the repo is Care Connect and it's a NodeJS app. The path is appointment management, appointment service. The language version is 20. Okay, let's press create. So it will create the component in the background. So we'll give it a few seconds to finish the component creation. Let's just quickly check on the database status. Okay, it's up and running. So we can go and start building this component. So we'll go to the component, and in the side menu, you can find build. We'll click on build latest. So this will trigger a new build uh, for the appointment service, depending on the build configuration that I have already provided. So it will take a few minutes to build. So until that get built, I'll show you how I have implemented this service. So I'll open a VS Code with the project. It's called appointment service. Okay. So this is an Express app, and it has a few resources to add, delete, update, appointment resources. So I have used SQLize, which is an ORM framework to manage the database. So let's see how I have done it. So here we can go to the appointment model. So you can see the data types that I have used. And then if you go to the database, you can see that I am getting the database name, database username, password, hostname, port, all that from the environment, on all that as environment variables. And we can, when deploying, we can provide these values. So I'll show you another important thing. So if you look carefully, so this in the directory structure, we have a file called component config under the .choreo folder. So let's go to that one. So there, so I mentioned about the network visibility. So in this one, we have specified the network visibility as organization. There are 3 values you can put. I have picked organization because I want this to be an internal API. And then we have added the port here. So that is, so which is we are using to run this service. That is at a very high level is how this is implemented. So we'll go back to the build page and see whether it has completed. So there are few steps to go. So I'll explain what the build is doing since we are seeing this for the first time. So this will check out the source code and build a Docker image out of this one, and then which then we can use this Docker image in the deployments. So we are using a GitOps-based approach behind the scenes. That's why in the finalization step, we'll be committing these artifacts in a GitOps repo. Okay, so the component has built successfully. So I'll go to the deploy page and configure the deployment. I'll click on configure and deploy. So here, there are a few environment variables that I need to define. So these are the environment variables that I have to define. We'll define them one by one. So DB host, we have to get it from here. Read it, and so that is the DB host. And then we have to put the DB port. We'll have add another environment variable, and the DB port is this. And we need the DB name. DB name is, we are using the default DB. So we'll put that value here. And then we need the DB username. DB username, we can get it from here. Edit. And then finally, the DB password. We'll mark it as a secret. Get it from here. And add it. Okay. So all the environment variables are defined. So these will be injected when the deployment is done. And it is running in the environment, the development environment. So we don't have any file mounts. I'll click next. And then you can see the endpoint details are red here. So the network visibility is organization. The port is 8090. We'll click on deploy. Okay, we'll give a few seconds for the deployment to complete, and then we can go and test the service. So to remind you the architecture again, so we are working on the appointment service, which is exposed as a internal API. So we'll go back. So I'll close this window since we don't need it. So here, I can go to the test tab to test this in the development environment. So since this is exposed as an internal API, it doesn't have a public URL. So what we can do is we can generate a temporary public URL just for testing. And I'll try it out just to make sure everything is working correctly. We should get so 200, we got a 200. That means it's working as expected, and we don't have any data in the database yet. Okay, so since I'm happy with the development environment, I'll quickly go to the deploy page and promote this service to the production. So I'm using the same database configuration in the production as well for this demo, but in a production environment, we should ideally use a different database. So I'll press next and promote. This will deploy the same Docker image that we built in the production environment. So it's still now everything is in active states. Okay, so we are done with the first component. Now let's move on to the second one, which is the BFF service. So this BFF service is in a different project. So I'll go to that project first, which is the web portal, and then click on, this is also a service component type. So I'll call it BFF service and connect give the repository. It's care connect and click on NodeJS and provide the correct path. So this is the backend for my front end using 20. Okay, so there is one thing that we have to do. So this connection to the appointment service is protected through the internal API gateway. So we need to get credentials or get an access token which allow access to the appointment service. So to do that, we can use Choreo connections in Choreo. So you can go to the dependencies section and go to connections, and there you can click on create. There we should see the service that we just created, which is called appointment service. Click on that one. Let's give this connection a name, appointment connection, and then click on create. So this will do all the required things behind the scenes, and then it will instruct us how to proceed. So what we have to do is we have to provide this configuration in our component to be able to inject these values. So I'll quickly do that. So we'll close this one. I'll go to the backend code. Yeah, here. So I'll go to the component config. So this is the same file a similar file that we saw in the previous component. So I just need to put the snippet that copied to this one. So this is I need to fix the indentation, and then I need to adjust the variable names. So I'll explain to you details about this in a moment. We'll first make sure we have everything correctly. Okay, it looks okay. I'll add the file, commit it to the GitHub repo, connection configs, and git push. Okay, so yeah, looks like it was pushed. So let me go back to Choreo and trigger a build and then explain to you the details until the build is happening parallelly. So I'll go to the show commits to make sure just pick the correct commit. So yeah, this was the commit, and let's say build. let's wait till it get queued, and then I'll go back to the code and explain to you what this is about. Okay, so let's go back to the code. So in the code, if you so you are already familiar with the top part, right? So we have the port details, we have the network visibility. So this API, I'm using the public network visibility, which means it can be accessible through the public internet. And then we have this additional part, which defines how the connection dependencies is managed. So here, here the top details refer to the connection that we just created. And then this environment part defines how different values are mapped to the environment variables. So these appointment service URL or client ID, those are the ones that I use in my application. And then Choreo will inject these attributes to these uh, environment variables. So different Choreo like app environments will have different values. So depending on the environment, it will inject correct values. So I'll just show you how I have implemented the service. So this is again Express application, and I have a couple of resources. And there, so if we look at one resource, there are some validations, and then here we are taking an access token, which is used as a header, authorization header to call the backend. How do we get the access token is implemented here. So we are reading these different environment variables and using those values to get the access token, and then the appointment service URL is again read from the environment variable. So this is the mapping that we have done here. Hope that part is clear. So we'll go back to the build page and see whether the build has completed. So yeah, it's just about to finish, and we'll wait. Yeah, so it's finished. Yeah, so we can go to continue the. So it's like, as you can see, it's the same pattern. You build and then you go and deploy. So here also we have configure and deploy. So in this case, we don't have anything else to configure because we have configured the connections, and that will inject the required environment variables. We don't have to do anything manually. So here we press next, and then here you can see the network visibility set as public. So we'll deploy. So now it will take the image that we build in the build step and deploy it in the development environment. Now again to remember you, so this is a publicly exposed API in the architecture and using the appointment service. So I'll go to test tab and click on console. So yeah, it shows my two resources. So again, to make sure everything is working correctly, I'll test the resource and see the result. So I added the mandatory API, mandatory parameter, and then yeah, I again got a 200 success. So that means the connections are working and everything looks good. So I'll since I'm happy, I'll go to the production to the deploy page and promote this to production. So we don't have anything here, so we'll just proceed. So the important thing to notice is here again, our connection configs are used to inject the correct values in this environment. And to further explain, if you think about this deployment, the development service deployed in the development environment will use the appointment service deployed in the development environment, and the service deployed in the production environment will use the uh, appointment service deployed in the production environment. So that is make sure the Choreo make sure through the connection configs. Okay, so now in our architecture, the appointment service and the backend service is done. So we'll next go to the web app, creating the web app to get the front end working. So this front end is again in the web portal. So we'll create another component. We'll pick a different component type this time. We'll pick a web application. Give it a yeah. Let's give it a name like connect front end, and then authorize and provide the GitHub repository details. So this is again the same repository. And then I have developed a React application. So I'll click the React option and then pick the correct path. It's a front end. And the build command is npm run build. This is same as default. I'm using the Node version 20. Press on click. Okay, it's creating the component. And after component creation, so we have to do one thing. So if you look at this architecture, so this the front end component depends on the backend service. So we have to make a connection between those two components. So how do we do that? So before doing that, I'll quickly go to the build and trigger a build. So the build happens while we explain, while we create the connection. So it's again the same pattern. You come to the build page, click on build latest, and then it will queue a build. Yeah, it's running now. So now to create the connection between the front end and the back end, I again go to the connection settings. So here I'll create a new connection. And this time I'm using the backend BFF service because this is a connection for the front end. So I'll give this a name, backend connection, and press create. Yeah, so it gives some instructions. So we need to copy this window config.api URL config, which I will copy, which we need in the deployment. So we'll check, yeah, so the deployment is happening. So the build is happening. So until that happen, I'll quickly go through the code and explain to you how it is implemented. So I'll go to the code web portal front end and how those configurations are mapped. I'll explain through this one. So this is a basic React application. So if we go to the app.js, you can see we have some protected routes which are protected through a login. And then in the use effect method, I'm reading the local storage for the existence of user details. If it is not there, I'm trying to get it from the user info cookie and then store it in local storage. And then if we look at these other components, like where we make we communicate with the backend service, here you can see that I am reading the service URL through this value. So this is a file. This is injected to this web application through a file mount. I'll show you how that happens. So just for the moment, think that like this is a file that is available after the deployment. So you're reading that one and using it to call the backend. So if you notice, we haven't used any tokens or anything to do the calls. The reason is we have a, internal component in the middle handling all that complexity for you. So you don't have to do anything. You just have to use this service URL after which you get after creating the connection to call the endpoint. So yeah, that's like at a very high level how the front end works. So we'll go back to the build page. Yeah, the build has completed. So we'll go back. We'll go to the deploy page and deploy the web app component. So this is where we specify the configuration value. So this is so as the API URL, I have this value which I got from the connection page. Okay, now I'll press next. And then it will ask for Choreo managed authentication. So I'll have it enabled and then have the error path like that. For the moment, I will not create any users because I am doing it as a separate step, and I'll click on deploy. So this will take the built image and deploy it here. Okay. So before we test the application, I have to create the users in our Choreo built-in identity. So how I do that is here. I go to the org settings and then go to application security, and then we have a item called Choreo built-in identity provider. You click on that one, and then here I'm going to use a so you can get a sample file from here. So I have already created a, a file to match my requirement. I'm going to use it here and upload it. I'll show you what it does. So here you can see what it has populated. So if I click on view details, it has created a username with these different user attributes, the name and email, which I will use in my application. So now we'll go back to the web application. It's in the web portal. It's the front end. So if we go to the deploy page, we can find the web app URL. I'll click on the web app URL. It will take few seconds for the first time since we have scale to zero enabled in the free accounts. So after a few seconds, the web app should appear. Okay. So the web app is here. So we'll click on login. So login should take to the managed identity. And so this, I will use the username as we have provided, and the password is okay. And click on sign in. Okay, so as you can see now, I am logged in, and so this name and everything was taken from the user details. So just to test it out in the development environment, I'll just put some values here. I'll pick a date further away, and yeah, let's pick a time like 2 p.m. and do a book, like book an appointment. Yeah, so as you can see, so the appointment booking happened successfully. So that means everything is working end to end in the development environment. So I'll close this one and promote this to the production. Let's click on promote, and then I can use the same configuration. Since if you remember, this API URL we got when we create the connection is environment independent, so you can safely use it. Choreo will manage the dependencies. So I'll click next. So in the production, I don't want to use the Choreo provided identity. Instead I want to use Asgardeo to manage my users. So the way to do that is I will go to settings, the component settings, and here you can see development and production. So the development, I'm using the built-in identity provider. For the production, I'm going to use Asgardeo. So this has instructions on how to do that. So I'll first go to Asgardeo console and configure it like this with this information. So first you need to go to the Asgardeo and then click on applications. And we need to create a new application. It's a standard based application. We'll give it a name. We'll give it Care Connect Web Portal and create it. Okay, so we have this. So if you create this, it says grant types, we need authorization, code, and refresh. So we'll give this like that. And then the authorize redirect URLs is provided here. We just have to copy paste. I'll pasted the login callback URL, and the next one is the logout callback URL. And we'll give the domain here, allowed origins. And then we are using JWT token type in the application. So we'll select that one. And all the other parameters, we can keep it like that and click on update. Okay, so the values got updated, and we'll go to the user attribute section. There I'm using two attributes in the application. So the email attribute and the name attribute. So I'll still click them here and then again click update. So that also got updated. So one additional thing. So we'll have the consent screen shown for the users. So remove the skip there. Okay, and then we'll come back here and we have to copy the client ID and the client secrets to the settings of the component. So the client ID is that, and the client secret is this one. We say add keys. So this should configure our web application to use Asgardeo as the identity manager. So we'll go to the deploy page, and I do the promotion again since we didn't do it last time. So you get the same value here and click next and promote. So this will deploy the same version that we have in development environment to the production environment. Now it's deployed and I can go to the production URL that we have in the production card. That will also take few seconds since we have scaled to 0. So until that loads up, I'll go to the Asgardeo console and add a user for testing. So I'll add my user and my email here. Let's say some COVID. Okay, and then configure a password for the login. Save. Okay. So yeah, so this is the production app. Now, if I click on login here, it should take me to Asgardeo login. Yeah, here I will provide the credentials that I just created, and let's see how it goes. Sign in. So it asks for my full name. Give it as it is, and then it asks for consent for getting these values attributes, and then I allow it. So after I allow it, it should take me to the appointments. Okay, so this is the production app. This is also, I'll just put some values to see how it works. So I'll keep this same appointment date and click on book appointment. Yeah, so it successfully created the appointment. So, okay, so now if we go back to the our architecture diagram, so we have deployed 3 components: appointment service, PFF service, and the web application. The only thing remaining is the task, the scheduled task that is sending email reminders. So that component is in the appointment management project. So we'll switch to that project. We are in the web portal, so we'll switch to the appointment management, and we'll create a scheduled task here. So this is an email reminder task. So I'll first authorize and then select the repository. So this is implemented using Ballerina because in the competition, if you remember, you can get an extra entry if you use Ballerina to implement one of your components. So for this one, I'm using Ballerina. And so it's in this place, email reminder task, and I will click create. So to show you something. So in the architecture diagram, so this email reminder task is within the same project as appointment service. So here we can directly talk to that appointment service through the project URL. And then for the email service, I am using a Choreo demo. It's the service that we use for Choreo demos. So that is how it is implemented. I'll show you the code as well in a moment. Okay, so the component is getting created. I think we are almost there. Give few seconds for it to complete. Yeah, it's completed. So so this one, we don't have to configure any connections because we are talking to a component in the same project. So I'll just do a build. So I'll click build latest, and I'll quickly show you the implementation of that as well. So if we go to appointment email reminder task, So here, this is the email template that I'm using. And then I'm using a configurable to feed the appointment API URL. We need to provide this when we are deploying, and then the application will use it to get the upcoming appointments and send emails to the people who have upcoming appointments. So that's a very basic implementation we have there. Okay, so we'll go back to the page. So it's finalizing the build. Should complete within few seconds. We'll give it some time to complete. And then, okay, until that completes, let's go and get the project URL. So it's so you can go to the appointment service, and this has a project URL listed here. So I'll copy it and go back to the email reminder task and go to the build. So yeah, so it's completed. So I'll go to the deploy page and deploy this task to the development environment. So I'll paste the value that I just copied. And then this is again environment independent. So you can use the same URL in development and production, and Choreo will make sure that you will reach the correct service in the environment. So I'll click next. And I'll configure the schedule that I want to run. So I want this to run every day around exactly at 1 a.m. So click deploy. And now the task is scheduled to run every day at 1 a.m. So just to quickly test this out, we'll go to the execute page. So I can test schedule, even though it's a scheduled task, I have the option to test it if I need. So here what you have to do is click on run now, and the run now will trigger a task on demand, and we can see like if it works correctly. So it's started. Let's see, it looks like running. So it got the appointment URL correctly, and it has sent an email because I created an appointment that is happening tomorrow. So just I'll go to my email and see whether I got it. Yes. So this is the email that I got related to my upcoming appointment. So yeah, so that so everything looks okay in development. So finally, I will go and deploy this to the production environment. Okay, I'll do a promotion. So I'll use the same configuration, and it should get the value. Yeah. Okay, and then next. And then the production one also I need to run every day at 1 a.m. and click on promote. Okay, so now I have everything implemented and deployed in production in Choreo. And let's go and see, and we'll submit this and see how we have done. Okay, so it says I have 8 out of 8 draw entries. And if you click on score breakdown, you can see that we have completed everything and we have got all the 8 entries. So that's about it related to the use case and how you can get all the points. So Kavishka, how we want to proceed? Do we have any questions?
We don't have any questions, Asanka. So we have only one request about whether the code will be available for people to refer. So we'll share the code in the YouTube description once the community call is over, so that you can refer the code as well and follow this community call video along with the code. So since we don't have any questions, I think we are good to end the session. So we want to encourage everyone to take part in the code challenge. Now that you have this resource, this community call video to follow, you can get the maximum number of points, that is 8 entries, and try to increase your chances of winning the code challenge. So we have a lot of submissions coming in, a lot of people registering for the code challenge. So getting the base level criteria criteria or meeting the base level eligibility criteria is very simple. So the community call before this covered that part very easily. So this community call covers how you can get the maximum number of points or the maximum number of entries. So this will make sure that you have higher chances to win. So we have one question that says, how do you determine the eligible candidates for the draw? So we have a base level eligibility criteria, right? Where you have to have a front end and a back end, and these both need to be deployed in the Choreo production environment. As soon as you meet these three requirements, you are eligible for the draw. So what Asanka showed in today's call was how you can maximize or increase your chance of winning by satisfying all 8 requirements that are listed in the Cybertruck challenge page. So as long as you have a front end and a back end app deployed in production, that makes you eligible for the draw. We'll give a few more seconds if there are any other questions. So you can always reach out to our team with any sort of questions through our Discord channel. The link is available in the YouTube description. If you have any questions or run into any issues while using Choreo, you can reach out to us through that. Post your questions and queries, and our team will reach out to you and answer your questions. So we encourage everyone to take part in the code challenge, and because you have a really amazing prize at the end of the day, you have a chance to win a Tesla Cybertruck or $100,000, which is quite a big prize, right? So try to follow this tutorial, this video, this community call video, and try to use the samples and try to implement your application in a way that you can use Ballerina, Asgardeo, internal, external APIs, databases, connections, and try to maximize your chances of winning. Thank you so much for joining today.